Welcome to Doctrine and Devotion, a podcast that explores Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. My name is Joe Thorne. I'm the lead pastor of Redeemer Fellowship in St. Charles, Illinois. And bringing somebody new on the podcast. Not new to me. I know this guy. I imagine a lot of you know him, but some of you may not because he's up in a different country, a different world, a land of... He lives in like a winter wonderland. And you may know him as Dean Lentini. If you don't, that's what he's going to be going by today. Dean,
sure, I'm used to it.
Dean Lentini.
Hey, man.
Dean
I'm
Lentini.
Glad to be here. This is awesome.
So listen, if you don't know who Dean is, Dean, you've been a pastor. You're a church planter now again. I think you've planted before, right?
No.
You haven't.
This is the first plant.
So you're planting up in the Great White North.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And how long have you been up there?
We've been up here since 2016.
Okay, very cool. So you've had plenty of time to acclimate, to really become a part of the culture and know what you love about it and what you don't love about it.
Yep, we've been to hockey games. We built our igloo.
Okay.
I think we're fitting in pretty well here.
Tapping the trees
My wife's
for the
Canadian,
maple
so
syrup, doing all that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Put on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do it Will Ferrell style on spaghetti.
Of course.
All of that.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And Dean, the reason Dean and I connected, I think I reached out to you because I think we followed each other on Twitter maybe, but I saw what Dean was doing on YouTube. And Dean wasn't only creating YouTube content that was high quality and interesting, but he was also live streaming. Like you were doing some live streaming stuff. And if you've ever seen live streaming, you've probably seen really good live streaming by professional people out there in the world. A lot of young people doing it, killing it. And you've probably seen some really bad, really boring, like soul-crushing live streams that go on for 3 hours, and it's just a big check me out fest or whatever it is, or just a snooze fest. But Dean's been doing really, really cool stuff. And so I was excited to talk to him because I wanted to find out more about the way he was creating content, how we at Doctrine and Devotion could begin to step into that world slowly as we have the time and the ability. And so I just started talking to you, man. I was like, hook me up. What do you do? Like, I've got sound equipment, but the tech side of video, we've been way behind on. Help me out. And you were very kind. We spent hours together on the phone just talking and learning stuff, and you showing me stuff. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you reaching out. Like, that was pretty fun. I was just doing my normal live streaming. Every Monday I do a stream about theology. I call it Theo Live. It's not the olive, okay? Everyone keeps saying it, but it's Theo Live. You
gotta put an olive graphic now. You have to create one with an olive.
I think, like, it's okay. I'm Italian, so like I can kind of roll with it a little bit, but dang, come on. But I was just streaming, doing my thing, and next thing I know, Joe Thorne is in the chat, and that was pretty exciting. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, listening to the podcast since day one. I'm sad Jimmy's not here, but I'm super psyched to be able to talk with you, man. So yeah, let's talk about live streaming. Let's talk about media. Let's talk about the local church.
We're going to get into it. I'll admit, I felt it felt really good when you and I started to talk, and you're like, I'm telling my wife that I'm talking to Joe Thorne, and she's like, oh, really? Like, whoa. And I just saw that Kevin Bacon is sliding into her DMs on, no, he's not, but he's responding directly to her. Kevin, the great, the amazing Kevin Bacon is talking to your wife on Twitter because she did a 7 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon, which she was able to get to, and he responded. Yeah. How cool is that?
That was insane, man. You're talking to the wrong Lentini about how to use the internet.
Oh, okay? Yeah, clearly.
She broke the internet yesterday. She made Kevin Bacon trend.
That is
that was insane.
I can imagine. That is super cool. Super cool. Well, originally, we were going to have a few people on. I was hoping to get 4. But Jimmy can't make it. He's tied up at work. We had Jordan Stefaniak on, but he's rocking like Windows 95 on an old, what was that? Was it Gateway? What were those computers that they used to? I can't remember.
The one with the cow?
Yeah, what was that? So it didn't work. He's been on a ton. He'll be back. We'll have him on next week or something. We love him. But of course, Dino. He's on. He's got all the gear. And I wanted to have these guys on, but I'm happy to talk with Dean because honestly, Dean has more experience in this area than all of us combined. And I wanted us to think through and talk about media and the church. The value of using different kinds of media, whether it's podcasting or video and YouTube, things like that. What are the negatives? What are the necessary consequences of using that kind of a thing? What are the cautions to avoid? And, why Baptists have been so bad at whatever the technology is we're always way behind the curve. Now you were Southern Baptist when you were in the States, weren't you, for a while?
I was a member at a Southern Baptist church for a while. I come from the IFB world.
Okay.
All right. So like kind of on the verge of it. I've said I've had like 1 foot in the IFB world, 1 foot in the Reformed Baptist world for a long time. I was like one of the few people in that Venn diagram between those two.
Yeah.
But pastored at garb churches, and anyone who comes from the IFB world will know what that means. Everyone else is like, wait, what? But it's a thing.
General Association of Regular Baptists, is that what it is?
Yeah,
I know Baptist stuff.
Trying to act like you didn't know.
I didn't know.
Is that exactly it?
I'm not sure, but it was founded in 1780. No, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. So let's start with this, right? Media is a major part of entertainment, communication, whether that's news, TV shows, Cobra Kai, what's up? Whatever it is, like church services, streaming. There he is showing off with your Cobra Kai mug.
I'm just saying.
That's pretty dope. I have a Cobra Kai t-shirt. That's looks pretty good. So let's start with this. What's the value of stepping into media for churches? I mean, church has been here for 2,000 years. God's given us His Word. His Word is enough. I know you believe that. I believe that. The Word of God is enough. It's our supreme authority in all faith and practice, like Scripture alone. It's the only revelation of God. We have the same theology there. So what's the value of media? Do we need it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Looking through church history, that's how the message has advanced, right? Like the printing press, Christians have always used technology to be able to get the gospel out. So like we have a history of it, but then, mixed in with what's going on now, specifically video, that's the world that I come from. I've dabbled in podcasts every now and then, but been on for a long time. So for me, video is really the primary thing that I do. And the reason why is because so many people are consuming it. Like there are great pros in doing it because people are there. Like what I do is on YouTube, and YouTube is the second largest search engine in the entire world. So that's only behind Google, and it's the same company. So Google actually uses a lot of YouTube. So my point in saying that is the pro is that people are using it. And now a lot of people think of like that and they go, okay, well, that just means like marketing, advertising to get, put out our church does this and this, we have this Easter service or something like that. But what I think of when I think of that is not just marketing, not just that there are people out there, but that your people are out there. Like any pastor, your congregants are on YouTube. They're on TikTok. They're on Instagram. They're on Twitter, all of those social media platforms. They're already there consuming things. So the question for us is really about like, are you going to step into that and answer some of those questions that they have that they're looking to others for? Or are you going to step into the void and kind of fill that need that they have?
That's a good point.
Or not,
That's a good point, because
I think it's a good pro.
People do. I mean, if we used to have church libraries, right? And some churches still have libraries, but people now just literally go online and the classics are on there for free. They order the books that they want, really cheap. And when they have a question, if they hear their pastor say something funky or weird or challenging, one of the first places they go, if not the first place, is Google. And they start searching, like they start looking it up. So it would make sense to have a presence online that goes beyond what you're offering on Sunday morning or in some of your classes. And I think that that's where, when we start to talk about, the different kinds of media that that I think we both would encourage churches to step into, can be overwhelming, because, we're thinking like, well, listen, I'm first of all, I'm tapped out. I don't have any more time for anything. There's a learning curve. There's a cost involved. I don't know how we would be able to step into that. And we can talk about some simple ways to step into it later on. But I'd like to hear what you have to say to people that would say it's going to cost money to step into that space, whether it's a podcast or a video. What is your response to that? Like, and besides coming up with the cheapest options, right? So it's going to cost something. What's your answer to the cost question?
Well, I mean, we have budgets for everything, right? Like, especially in a Baptist church, we itemize everything, and we have so many devoted to Vacation Bible School, so much devoted to our discipleship curriculum. Really, if you're viewing this as something that you need to do, which I think every church really should focus on getting some kind of content, depending on, where you're at, what you're trying to do. It could be on a different platform. But usually that would entail, a camera, microphone, all the gear things. So are you going to invest in that form of discipleship? Because I think that if you think about how a church can help their congregation online, it is a form of discipleship.
Yeah.
And so, like, you would be willing to sacrifice, to get, for a lot of churches, 100 kids at VBS is a huge deal.
Right.
Now it's a little bit different because you're talking about the internet, but on the internet, 100 views on something is pretty small. Yeah. But you have the potential of reaching thousands of people. Yeah. Now it's a little bit different because of the relationship and, how long are they viewing something and all of that kind of stuff, all the analytics, but you can reach more people. And then specifically your congregation, they're already there. So are you going to disciple them or not is the question. And so are you going to sacrifice in that? I think it's worth it. Yeah. I think it's worth it to invest in some things. Now, you don't have to go off the deep end and go crazy and buy, the latest 8K camera and, everyone has the microphone like you got the fancy mic.
Yeah, but the church didn't pay for this.
Yeah, that's true. But, yes. Like you got to invest in some of these things, but you don't have to invest so much that you go into, crazy spending spree. Yeah. But I think it's worth it because people are worth it. Your people are worth it. They're going to be online. So might as well be reaching them, might as well be discipling them. And so it could just be added into, another aspect of your ministry, another facet, another item on the budget. And might be even cheaper. Some of those discipleship programs, this, Joe, like they are really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of overhead. Yeah. They got to pay typesetters and copy editors and editors and graphic design artists. There's the paper, there's all that stuff. They got to cover their whole, there's a lot there's a reason those things are expensive besides just, capitalism. There's a reason those things cost. And I think, we'll get some recommendations to people to start in various ways. But one of the things you said was, you've got to disciple your people. Are you going to disciple them? And of course, like for us, and I think we're on the same page here, the most significant event or gathering we will ever have in the week is the Lord's Day. When we gather together, word, sacrament, that's the most important thing. If we're going to pick one, God sets that apart. But that doesn't mean that Sunday school or small groups or seminars are unimportant. They're very important because those are means by which we continue to make disciples. And this is clearly another means. Now, it's not as interactive. But what it lacks in some of the immediate relational components, it makes up for, or at least it's offset by, the fact that you can take any of this content that we're creating and link it to free resources, other things that you may be offering back to your church. You can connect people very quickly to whatever you want them to connect to. That would then either lead to deeper study or to those relational components. And I like the idea of saying, listen, we want to teach our people. We want to invest in our people. And hopefully the pastors that you have are good, godly, and wise men. And if that's the case, then why not allow them to teach more, because one of the things that we run into with putting together classes and whatnot is, well, who's going to be able to make it? How are we going to do it? Well, you could have a class that meets weekly, monthly, whatever, but even if you have it in person, you can record that and then distribute it. You could put it online, and then all of the people in your church can watch it at their leisure. There are a lot of things that offset the downside of it, of the digital media that we're using. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of it, of like, you're not replacing your ministry.
Right.
Like it is not a replacement for any aspect of your ministry. At least it shouldn't be. So going online, some people, they don't want to record their services because, people are just going to stay home and they won't come to church. Well, if you're training them right, then that shouldn't be that big of an issue. Now, that's going to happen. You can't control, how people are going to react to things, but, we're not talking about replacing any of those things. It's just supplementing. Yeah. It's just helping the ministry and adding new avenues. And, what you were saying about teachers, it doesn't have to fall on the senior pastor to do all of this.
Right.
If you're listening and you're thinking like, I've got all this other stuff I got to do throughout the week, and you're just saying like, now I need to know how to do YouTube and, do all these things. Well, most likely you probably have someone younger in your church who knows how to do the tech stuff.
Yeah.
Most likely. Talk to the video game people. They know what they're talking about with this. I'm not one. I had to learn a lot from YouTube. But you probably have someone in your church who knows how to run all the tech stuff, knows what you need. And then, if you've got, plurality of elders, or you have other leaders in your church who can make some content, just a devotional supplementing your ministry, maybe an explanation on, hey, this was the sermon on Sunday, this is how I applied it in my life. Here's some action steps, things like that. There are so many things that churches can do that aren't going to replace any aspect of their ministry, but add on both for the members of their church and, it can have an impact. You never know. Kevin Bacon might tweet at you.
And then your world changes.
Yeah, right.
You guys are going to be walking the red carpet. Kevin and his wife, Kira Sedgwick, that's her name, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, you guys will be joining them, chilling out. They're gonna, if they don't already, I don't know, they're gonna believe in Jesus. Then you're gonna be like the new, what's that guy? Was that Hillsong? Carl Lentz. You'll be the new Carl Lentz. Yeah, without all of the abuse.
That's a great intro.
Yeah,
that's what everyone wants to hear. The next Carl Lentz.
So how long have you been live streaming?
I've been doing it for just about a year. It hasn't been that long. I've had the YouTube channel for a couple years. I was one of those weird kids in high school making horror movies with my friends.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, man. We had this little production company and we made all kinds of movies. Not great, but I've always been interested in that. And then movies, I just love movies. And so when the pandemic hit, I was taking videos of how my family, because up here it was a lot more stringent and there's all kinds of ideas about that. But, for us, we were kind of bored. And so we started making videos about just what we were doing. That turned into vlogs. And, next thing I know, I'm talking about theology in my YouTube videos. And I was like, I'm going to turn this into a show. So last year, it's been almost one full year of starting this Theo Live project on Mondays, streaming for about an hour and 15. And it's been really fun, and seen a lot of growth. At least, everything is relative as far as that goes. But for me, it's been pretty good growth, and, being able to interact with you has been a fun little highlight of it. But yeah, it's been a year, and I've grown a lot in that. If you go back and you watch some of my videos, you can see some of you guys who are like, I could never get into doing video for my church. Look at my first episode to my last episode.
Okay, just so happens I have both brought up, so let's take a look.
Oh no,
no, I don't. I do have a recent one though. I wanted to just take a. We'll take a look at this. All right, okay. So,
my name is Dean, and welcome to Theo Live, a live YouTube show airing every Monday where we talk about theology, church, and culture. Now let's get into it. Hey, welcome to Theo Live, episode 48, I believe. Today is going to be an interesting topic.
Yeah. The olive. The olive.
No, it's not.
It's the olive, bro. I'm looking right at it.
Theo Live. It's hard. There's a space there. There's a little tiny space there. Design is hard, okay?
Okay, listen, you're good at the design. Look at your lighting, man. You got the lighting up, your camera work. Listen, the reason I bring it up is because, like, it's actually not easy to do. I know guys that do it will say it's relatively simple in that, like, you just do these things. You can do it, but simple doesn't always mean easy. Multiple steps. There are things that are involved. But I remember looking at your stuff going, that's really good. Like, look at that. He's got Bunyan up there on the table. You had it. You were using it as a doorstop in one of the videos. I was really unhappy. I don't know.
Hey. It wasn't a doorstop.
Okay.
I put a plant on it. Okay.
It's even worse. Okay. Just throwing garbage on top of it. But I was like, wow, this guy's, really doing it. And it's your style. It's very much you. And that's one of the things that I think social media and digital media can do for churches is that it really does allow people, teachers, preachers, whether they're, teachers in the church or elders or pastors, it allows them to communicate the truth of Scripture, but it does highlight like their personality, their individuality. And that's something that people really do resonate with. Reading a book is amazing. I love reading books. I've loved reading books since my conversion. I can't get enough. But more of a person's personality is experienced when you're listening to them. And then when you're seeing them and listening to them, there's even more. And with your stuff like live, you can also now interact with people. People are asking questions. They're getting into all of it. So I think that there are so many upsides to doing something in the digital media world for our local churches that will leverage the means of grace in the lives of our people, and then of course you're reaching out to others. Now, let's talk about the various things that are out there that people could do, right? In terms of the newer forms of media. Everybody knows about podcasting now. 10 years ago, not as much, but now podcasting is a huge thing. What else are people doing in the digital media world that is still vibrant? Blogging, not so much anymore. But what is vibrant? What's working?
I would like to say YouTube. YouTube is growing. So I would say it's mostly video. Yes, you have like the boom of podcasts with Serial back in the day. Yeah. And, now we got Hulu series, basically just all about podcasts. So those are still there, and those are good avenues. There are people who can use those. And there are people who are just like having like town hall discussions through podcasts for their own local church. And that's fantastic. But yeah, you're missing a little bit of that personal element of being able to see people and see what's around them. You talk about John Bunyan, but even that, like, you can see, oh, that's important to that person. It's a good opportunity for people to see, what is our pastor like? It was why it was fun. Like a lot of things about the pandemic obviously were not fun, but one of the fun things was being able to see like what is the pastor like sitting in front of when he's doing his sermon, or whatever, seeing a little bit into their home. That's really fun. So the video things really help with that. Of like Instagram reels are really big, and I would say for churches, like you probably don't need to be on like every social media platform. Twitter probably doesn't matter. I don't think I've ever seen a church account on Twitter have an impact really. But on Instagram, it's very different, because you do get like the pictures, you do see the videos. So Instagram reels are a big deal. I hear TikTok is important. I'm a little old. I'm a little too old for that. I drop videos every once in a while, but I'm just,
TikTok is huge. And the cool thing about it is, I use TikTok for entertainment. I watch it, to laugh, to kill. I got 5 minutes, which sometimes turns into 30 if I'm in the bathroom. And then Jed's like, what are you doing? Are you on TikTok? I'm like, yeah, I'm watching TikTok. Sorry. but like it knows what you like. And so definitely if you're putting out theological content, because I do get Christian stuff on there because it seems the algorithm knows I'm a believer, and I get some Christian stuff, and some of it's good and some of it's terrible. I know it's big, and those lend themselves to small soundbite sort of things. When it comes to discipleship, that can be a teaser, that can be something that is like referential, it can like lead directional. But I think YouTube, podcasts are great, but again, I almost think podcast in some ways is harder, because it's almost like if you tell a spooky story around a campfire and everybody's there, like you're going to have an easier audience than if you try to tell a spooky story on a podcast and then they can just listen to it whenever. It's like so like when you're talking to somebody, they can see your facial expressions, they can see your excitement. I think it's a little bit easier for the audience to interact with. So I agree. I think video in whatever format like it ultimately takes, video is going to increasingly be the thing that people want. Like I want to hear a preacher, I want to see a preacher, like I want to sit under the preaching of the word. And so like that's cool, but when it's like teaching, dialogical, like that's where I really enjoy like the interactive capabilities of a live, which we haven't done yet, but it certainly sounds like a good way to supplement what we do on Sundays, and a good way to supplement some of the more traditional ways of teaching. I think classes are awesome, but if we can make them available, I mean, I think during the pandemic, we were doing Sunday mornings, and then I would do these Wednesday evening videos, and we did those live. We did a bunch of those Wednesday ones live. Of course, Sunday was live, and we didn't get a bunch of people asking questions. We would get a handful of people there, but I think there are things to do. But what gets in the way besides cost? What are some hangups that Christians and churches are going to have about finding a way to enter into digital media?
Well, I think that part of it is like perfectionism. There's a lot of stuff that churches do, and there's a formality to a lot of churches, and it depends on the culture of the local church, but most churches have some formality. They call it the sanctuary. Everyone's wearing, a little bit nicer clothes, depending on what church you're at. And you kind of feel like you have to have that same formality when it comes to making some kind of content, some kind of video for your congregation, for the internet. And so with that comes like the prep of like, if you're going to do that, you think that it has to be really formal, and it has to have like these certain points, hit them, and everything needs to look super professional. It doesn't have to, like for me, live streaming, I'm pretty casual on my show, what I do. And there are going to be tech issues. There are going to be, little flaws here and there. I'm not going to say things properly. I've probably messed up on this podcast several times. So it's just how people speak, right?
Right.
But if you have that kind of philosophy, then I think it makes it a lot easier to make content for the internet. So you're not scared of, not appearing like you are super intelligent about the topic,
right.
That you have it fully grasped, and also like the language of it. If you go in, if you are doing a video behind your pulpit and you're all dressed up and you're going to make that video, most likely, you're not going to get that many people who are going to watch it. People want that casualness. And so for some people, that's like a huge stumbling block, to get out of that rhythm. So I think that would be part of it. I think some people are maybe just a little bit fearful of chasing after numbers. Like they want to stay away from that temptation, because it is the internet, because, we all want to see, you want listeners for your podcast, right? Like when I do streaming, I want more people to come in. I'm hoping, hey, some of the people listening, they might come over and check out my channel. We all naturally want that. And some people are so well aware of their pride that they stay away from any of that kind of stuff. So I think that would also be a problem. But I would say probably the formality thing would probably be like the biggest thing.
That's definitely, I could see that, the formality being, well, I mean, I think, if they can't pull it off and have it look pristine, like why bother doing it? And there is a kernel of truth in there. Like you want to put something out that does like look good and sound good to a certain level, but that's not about formality. That's really a technical production issue, and there are ways to get around that. I think another reason that people are slow to do it is because they just don't know what to do. They're like, what do I do? Like, oh, do we just put up the sermons? Like, well, that's great, but no, like, what else could you do? You're a pastor or you're a teacher. Maybe you're an apologist. How do you want to reach people? What do you want to say to people? What are your concerns? What's on your heart? And then they're like, okay, so I don't know what to do now. Do I just do a podcast? Or I think because it is like it's not easy to narrow down. Like, okay, we're going to like you have a Theo Live or the Olive, which I didn't even think about until you told me that, and I'm like, oh man, that's going to be the thing. I love it.
I played myself.
I think that like you've got to figure out like what are my strengths, what am I passionate about. So it's not just what are you passionate about. What are you passionate about that you have strengths in, and now what about that can you bring to the people that will encourage them, strengthen them in the faith? And once you have that sort of clarity, it gets a bit easier to say like, okay, so I want to do interview style discussions, or I just want to do a straight like interactive conversation on a live stream, right? So like I'm talking, I'm setting things up, and then I'm taking questions. Other people want to deliver like classes. Like you can do classes on the internet. It's great. There's a total need for classes on the internet. And maybe like how many people have watched R.C. Sproul's classroom training videos? He's going into theology.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, so there's a space for everything, but I think there is the concern or like maybe the fear of, well, nobody's watching it. Nobody's really into it. And listen, if nobody in your church cares and nobody else is listening, but forget the rest of the world. If nobody in your church wants to watch what you're putting out after you've put it out, it may be an indication that it's not needed at your church. It may be an indication that you're not very good at this. It may be an indication that they have a lack of spiritual hunger. Like there could be a bunch of reasons why it's not connecting. So you don't just default to one response when you see that. But listen, when we put out our Wednesday night services or Wednesday night teaching on the internet, we got very few hits. I think we'd get like, how many people would watch it live? 25 people would watch it live. And
it's pretty good.
It's all right. But I mean, it's like if we had it at the church though, more people would come. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not the number. It's just more like, okay, if I had it at the church, more people would show up, I think. We have done stuff in the past where very few people show up. We know what that's like. They get some prayer service, and like the first month you get like 50 people at the prayer service, and the next month you get 30 people at the prayer service. The next month you get 15 people at the prayer service. I think there is a built-in concern about numbers and our perceived understanding of its efficacy going out. I think that's probably another reason that people are hesitant to jump in, because it seems big. I don't know how to do it. What if it doesn't work? I've tried it. People didn't like it. And not everybody has to do it, certainly.
Yeah.
What about that?
And I will say that that's any ministry.
Right.
Like anything, like anyone who has been in pastoral ministry knows that feeling of trying to do something new, adding another service, or changing it up. And there is that pressure of like, oh snap, what's going to happen if I mess up on this, or if this doesn't work, if people don't come to it, but you still do it. You still try it.
Yeah.
So this could just be another thing that you do with that. And I will say, for anyone who is thinking about it and thinking about investing and, leading that charge to go to whoever's accountable with money and saying like, hey, I think we should invest in that. That's kind of a risky thing. But you can always resell that stuff.
Yeah.
You can't resell some of those discipleship stuff that you do for different ministries, but you could sell that camera and get your money back. So, it's worth a shot. No,
yeah. The resale value on some of that is, on a lot of that is really good. And, again, there's so many applications for it that I think it's certainly worth exploring, especially if we want to reach, people that aren't like inclined to come to extra stuff, right? I don't know. Yeah. I'm just thinking I'm rethinking some discipleship rhythms at our church, and because I want us to do more, and I want us to grow in ways that we're not currently growing. And I'm thinking more spiritually, we have a vibrant, spiritually vibrant body. People love the Lord. They're very serious about the Lord, but I see that we as leaders could be doing something different. And so whatever we do, I do plan on finding a way to utilize that, like to leverage whatever we do so that it can be used in digital media as well. And this is the nice thing. If you're going to teach a formal class, you can either manuscript it, and if you are like me and you don't manuscript, just record it, and there's a software that will manuscript it for you. It types it up. It does a great job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otter, I think, is the one I use. It's great. You can turn that into video content. You can break it up into little pieces. There's all kinds of things that you can do to disseminate your regular material. Even it's like, yes, putting your whole sermon on YouTube. You might not get a lot of hits, but if your pastor, let's say you're the digital guy, you're the media guy, but let's say like you love your pastor, but the whole sermon, like, maybe people aren't going to be into it. Why would they bother listening to this guy? They don't know him. Okay, fine. But your church will enjoy it. But what you could do is find that sweet spot in a message where like that, because a good preacher, listen, I know I've been preaching long enough to know, like, my sermon was okay, but that line impacted a lot of people. That sentence, people were like, whoa. And it wasn't because it wasn't anything new. The way it was worded, it connected with them. Pop that out, put it on a reel, put it on TikTok, or put it in Twitter, whatever. There's ways to just put pieces out there that will then move them in the right direction as well. So you can repurpose a lot of your content into different formats.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to figure out some whole new strategy, figure out like, oh, I have to make 5 new videos a week. You could use what you're doing. You put a camera, even in Sunday school, like, sermons, obviously. Yeah, man, that gospel nugget, that's going to affect people. But even in Sunday school, have a video there, like a video camera there. Might be weird for the first couple of weeks. People get used to it. And then, you could have a little gospel nugget from Sunday school. You could have like 5 of those through Sunday school, evening service, whatever you're doing, you might as well record it, invest in some hard drives, I guess. That's like the biggest thing there. But if you want to use it, you can. If not, like, okay, it's just going to sit on that hard drive. But like, why go through like the hassle of making all new things when you already are doing quite a bit? Just take those little clips and if someone who's recording it can maybe even write it down. Oh, I think that at the 34-minute mark, you really hit it on the nail there. So we need to take that clip there.
Think of how many amazing Sunday school teachers we have in our churches that have been at it for a long time. They love the kids. And think of how many times they drop like these succinct, and you have to with the kids, right? But they drop these succinct, powerful expressions of the character of God or the gospel or whatever it is. And like that can be whether it's a 5-minute clip or a 60-second clip, right? There's these little things that we can put together that then tease people enough to go like, wow, that was really good. Where do I go for more of this? Oh, I want to go to that church. I want to visit that. Or like, wow, they talk to children in a way that actually like honors children. They don't treat them like a bunch of idiots, like whatever it is. All right. So I got a couple of questions here. These will be my last 2 for you.
Sure.
Why are Baptists so terrible at everything? And no, it's like really like I remember I'll just say it because I'm like when the Holman Christian Standard Bible came out. Now it's just called the Christian Standard Bible. When the Holman Christian Standard Bible came out, I was like, oh, that's a good translation. Let me check out the website because I can link to it. Well, it was a useless website. You couldn't even look at that. Yeah,
CSB is my jam.
Translation.
Watch what you say, Joe.
Okay. I won't get into the fact that they ditched theological language because they've been like mystified by how people could understand a word like propitiation, which used to be in the HCSB, but whatever. I'll leave that to the side. They're bad typesetting and they're horrible fonts, but whatever. I'll leave all that. I'm not even going to get into it. But the CSB is a good translation. So the translation was great. And the thing is the reason it's a good translation is because they got scholars from every, evangelical tribe to work together on this. So it's really good. But then they get Southern Baptists to build the website, and it's the worst Bible website you could conceive of, at least years ago when I went on it. Like you couldn't even link to particular verse. It was a nightmare. And so why are Baptists bad at digital media? Now, or if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I'm happy to be corrected.
Well, all right, you're not wrong. All right. But I think that there's a skepticism of the world that whatever the world's doing, we're just kind of like, I need to be far away from that. And that, it's not just the IFB world. That's just Baptists in general. We're kind of ready to like duke it out pretty much. And so whenever we see the world really focusing on something, we're like, oh, that's garbage automatically. Like I think it has to do with our views on common grace, but like there's like a skepticism. There's a fear of just like giving into the world, not just of like it affecting us, but, are we on that slippery slope toward, just being like the world? So I think that's part of it. And then I think that a lot of people just think, it doesn't matter. Trends don't matter. What people are doing online, that stuff doesn't matter because it's the local church. And like, obviously, like, the local church is like super important. Like it's what Jesus said he's going to build, and not an online church, a real physical church. But that doesn't negate that there are people out there. And so like it might be built off of solid theology when it comes to the importance of the local church. But sometimes even solid theology can put blinders on us to other things that aren't actually going to combat that solid theology, but we feel like there's a fear of it, so we stay far away from it. That, and then usually Baptists just don't have any style. We leave that for the Anglicans.
Well, it's funny interesting, because what I've noticed is like, wow, you've got a really well put together curriculum here. Like it looks amazing, and the content's horrible. The theology's bad. It's just moralistic, therapeutic deism. It's just nonsense. And so I'm like, I'm out. I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And listen, I have these conversations with publishers. Like when I'm at these places, I'll be like, your children's stuff's horrible, man. Like you guys you're Veggie Tales. It's not, I would never use this in my church. And then they're like, well, have you tried this? Because this, we just came out with, look at this. And I'm like, that looks slick, man. Woo, that looks nice. And I go through it, I'm like, yeah, this is just repackaged nothing. And then I go to the Reformed guys and I'm like, yeah, man, this is where it's at. Where my homies at. Let's go. Like, what the heck? Like you have gold here, but like it looks horrible. It's like the tackiest stuff. And it's like, so there's a disconnect. It's like, oh, I want good theology to look good. One of the things I'll tell you, one of the reasons I like one of the things I appreciate about Crossway and ESV, they're not a sponsor, anybody, is that they, if you want to be, you can click on, advertise on this podcast right there in your podcast player. Is that they consciously think like, okay, this is the Word of God, and we want to present it in form in a way that honors what it is. They're not just thinking like, oh, I want it to be readable. They do. They want it to be readable because it's the Word of God and it should be readable. But it all goes back to we want to present it in a particular way. And one thing is clear, whether you like the ESV translation or not, they know how to present it in a way that looks really good, that honors the text. And so it's like, I want the Reformed guys to do that. And they're some of them are good at it, but like a lot of them are they're just not it. Like Banner of Truth, man. I love Banner of Truth. It's like my favorite publisher. And they got like the worst covers of books. I don't
know, Joe.
It's rough.
I don't know. Some of those, like it's so bad it's classic.
Okay, yes, sure.
Oh man, those white covers. Are you kidding me? On the inside, like the Whitfield, like the 2-volume biography of Whitfield on the inside. Oh my goodness. Looks so beautiful.
Come on, man. But then you got the other, and it's like Baptists, I think part of it, my thought is that Baptists have oftentimes been bad because they're so focused on the truth. They're not worried about the medium, right? But the medium matters. The medium is important. Yeah. The medium is the message, which doesn't mean what some of you might think that means. But it means that the medium itself carries a lot of weight. And it matters. So you got to pay attention to that. Other people are like, we just got to make something that looks good, and they're not putting much thought into the other. I think it's why, because it's like, oh, it still goes wrong in both directions.
Yeah.
All right. So okay, I got another question. Who is somebody out there that's doing digital media good in the Orthodox Christian, even Calvinistic-y, if you can think of, who's somebody out there that's doing a good job with that?
Well, there's this podcast that I listen to called.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Don't count because it's just a podcast. They don't count. I'm thinking video.
A video. I mean, there are people that are really popular that like they regardless of maybe some of the content that they say is pretty good as far as like the quality of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So you have those. So I mean, like James White, like there's a reason why he's super popular. Like he does it consistently. The quality is up there as far as like the look of it. Apologia, like those more popular content creators, like there's a reason why they're popular. And some of that is the content, but also like what you're saying, like the style of it. So those people are people to learn from for sure. Then there's like other folks as well. I've got some YouTube buddies that are doing it really well. John Adams Ministries, another Reformed Baptist guy. He does it well. Trey Van Camp, who wouldn't necessarily fit into like the Reformed world, but he's a church planter down in Arizona. He's got great style in his stuff, good content. So there are plenty of people that you can go and find. If you just put in Reformed theology into whatever category or platform that you're using, just put in Reformed theology, you'll probably find some really interesting people making good looking content.
Yeah.
But we need more. We definitely need more.
Because what I think of, I think like, well, there are certain groups and guys, like, whether that's Founders or Doug Wilson and his crew, and those are two very different things, so they're sort of linked. Apologia, they all have like style. They've invested the money, the resources. They've got a look, high production value in what they do. So a lot of that's done with excellence. My concern is like Reformed Baptists right now have a bad reputation as being just pugnacious jerks that that are just hardcore patriarchal. Women need to be quiet and, not whatever it is, right? It's just they go over the top. Mm-hmm. And I hate that. And I think one of the ways that we can hopefully change the perception of Reformed Baptists is to have more digital media out there by gracious, strong, godly, understanding Calvinists that are putting stuff out there that aren't constantly treating every social ill as if it is the end of the world and every deviation in doctrine as if it is a matter of orthodoxy. So I see guys doing a great the presentation, the media is oftentimes good in a few of these cases, but it's the attitude of the spirit of it that I have a problem with. And when people type in Reformed Baptist, that's our context. Some of that's going to come up pretty quick. So I'm a concern.
Yeah. When you ask that question, it's like, who's doing it exactly right?
No, nobody's doing it exactly right. But there are guys that are doing good, and I think we can learn from each other. So listen, final thoughts, man. Because you're out there doing your thing. When you're not Yukon Cornelius, when you're not the trapper from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And and listen, all I have to say is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and everybody right now, at least in my generation, will be like, I know exactly who he's talking about. And the young ones are like, what are you talking about? Like, just Google Yukon Cornelius or just look on the screen. I'll have a picture of it right here. Final words. He was
pretty awesome.
He was awesome.
I'll take it, man.
Yeah, that's a compliment. Like that's not a bad thing at all. I don't mean that as a dig. I mean, look I get Harlot references. Okay, I get Garden Gnome. Like, well, that's all right, I guess. All right, so final thoughts on digital media and the church, like just to encourage people with a way to maybe begin to look at it with fresh eyes if this is something that they haven't done before.
Well, I would say just go and watch some things first off. Like, see what people are doing. Ask yourself if you are able to do that in some way, and then just try it. Just try it. Like that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give to anybody is like, we know that people are there. We know that there's like the availability to be able to reach not just your congregation, but also other people, and maybe even to draw in, like what you're saying earlier, like draw in some people who are on like the outskirts of your congregation, bring them closer through having them understand you and your theology a little bit more. But just try it, give it a shot and see, what the Lord would do with it. And yeah, it might require a little bit of an investment, but I think it's worth it. I mean, Jesus in the parable of the wedding banquet, Go to the highways and to the byways. Like, we don't even have to do that, guys. It's the internet. It's right there in front of us. It's in our hands. We can just talk to people about Jesus. He's worth the investment. Those people that you might be able to disciple are worth that investment. So just give it a shot. And every once in a while, your stream might not work correctly. You might look dumb. You might say something that's stupid. But hey, that's going to happen in the pulpit sometimes too, right?
That's life. Don't fret, man. Just I think try, step into it. And yes, we're gonna have more talks about this because it takes just running a camera live on a Sunday morning takes a few people. So you got to have a team, and so you may not be able to do that. So what can you do? We'll get into that at another time. Dean, if people want to follow you on social media, where do they find you?
You can go on to youtube.com/Dean Lentini. My name's pretty.
It's not Dino Lentino.
Out there. It's not Dino Lentino, but it's pretty dang close. So
Dean
you
Lentini,
can find me, Dean Lentini, on whatever platform.
No underscores.
No underscores.
Yeah, that's how you do
Jimmy.
It. Hear that, Jimmy? You guys got to get a new thing. Hey, Dean, thanks for coming on, man. I love you, brother. Love what you're doing up there in Canada and what you're doing online. Keep doing it, and I'm going to keep begging you for help and assistance and figuring out how we can do more stuff better. For the rest of you guys, thanks for listening. We always appreciate it when you tune in. We have our normal podcast dropping every Monday and Thursday, but if you want to support the podcast, that allows us to do conferences. We've got one coming up in 2023. You can subscribe to Doctrine and Devotion All Access. Right there on your phone, you can scroll down as you're listening to this, and there should be a link that says support this podcast. You click that, you can sign up for All Access. And what you get are 5 devotional meditations on theology and scripture, Monday through Friday, and you'll get the Banter of Truth podcast, which is just me and Jimmy chopping it up every time. So check that out. Find us on social media at Doc and Devo, both Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for listening, and God bless.